On the night of the 7th of April 1939, a convoy of automobiles leaves Tirana heading south. In the back seat of the lead car, Queen Geraldine lies on a mattress, still bleeding from the caesarean delivery that brought her son into the world 48 hours earlier. The infant, Crown Prince Leka, is wrapped in a blanket and held by a nurse. King Zog walks to the car ahead of her, a pistol on his belt, a cigarette between his fingers. Behind them, approximately 115 members of the royal household climb into whatever vehicles remain. In the boot of one car, 11 suitcases. No one in the convoy knows yet that their contents will be argued about for the next 87 years. Italian warships are already anchored in the harbours of Durrës, Vlora, Santander and Schengen. 40,000 troops are landing on Albanian beaches. At the port of Durrës, 360 gendarmes and townspeople under Major Abbas Kupi are the only organised resistance the kingdom can offer. They hold the waterfront for 5 hours. A naval shell kills Sergeant Mujo Ulkinaku, who becomes the first and last martyr of a defence that was over before it began. Count Tiano's aide Filippo Anfuso will later observe that if the Albanians had possessed a well-armed fire brigade, they could have driven the Italians into the Adriatic. The convoy crosses the Greek border on the 9th of April. Geraldine is carried across on a stretcher. The infant prince has not yet been registered with any government on earth. Zog looks back toward the mountains he was born in and says what multiple sources record as his last words on Albanian soil. Oh God, it was so short. He has been king for 10 years and 7 months. He is 43 years old. He will never see Albania again. Zog dies in a hospital on the outskirts of Paris 22 years later, age 65, a king without a kingdom buried in a municipal cemetery. Queen Geraldine returns to Albania 63 years after fleeing it, and dies 5 months after arriving, aged 87. Crown Prince Leka grows to 6 feet 9 inches tall, lists his profession as king on his passport, brings a bazooka to a standoff with soldiers in Gabon, loses a disputed referendum on restoring the monarchy, and dies in Tirana at 72. And then there is the grandson, Leka II, born in Johannesburg on territory declared Albanian for 24 hours by the South African government, who now lives in Tirana with a 5-year-old daughter named after the great-grandmother who fled on a mattress. The daughter is the sole heir to Europe's most forgotten throne. Ahmet Muhtar Zogoli was born on the 8th of October 1895 at Burgajet Castle in the Mat district of Ottoman Albania. His family, the Zogoli, were Bajraktars, hereditary feudal governors of the Mati region, who claimed descent through the maternal line from the sister of Gjergj Kastrioti Skanderbeg, Albania's national hero. His father, Shemal Pasha Zogoli, governed the region with tribal authority that predated any modern state. His mother, Sadije Toptani, came from one of the most powerful landowning families in central Albania. The boy was sent to the Galatasaray Lyceum in Istanbul, the Ottoman Empire's most prestigious school, and returned at 17 to fight in the independence movement of 1912. His political ascent was methodical and ruthless. Governor of Shkodër, Minister of the Interior, Prime Minister on the 26th of December 1922 at the age of 27, the youngest in Albanian history. On the 23rd of February 1924, a man named Beshir Valteri shot him in the Parliament building, hitting him in the hand and hip. Zogoli survived, but months later, Fan Noli's liberal revolution drove him from power. He fled to Yugoslavia. He returned that December at the head of a mercenary force that included white Russian soldiers, recaptured Tirana by Christmas Eve, and never allowed himself to be removed again. Now, on the 21st of January 1925, a compliant assembly elected him president of the Albanian Republic under a constitution that gave him near dictatorial authority. 3 years later, he went further. On the 1st of September 1928, a hand-picked constituent assembly proclaimed him Zog I, King of the Albanians. He swore his oath on both the Bible and the Quran, a Muslim monarch binding himself to a country where Catholics, Orthodox Christians, and Bektashi Sufis lived alongside Sunni Muslims. He was never formally crowned. He simultaneously declared himself Field Marshal of the Royal Albanian Army. The Constitution promulgated on the 1st of December 1928. 234 articles, established what it called a democratic, parliamentary and hereditary kingdom. The kingdom he built was the poorest in Europe, and at the 1930 census recorded roughly 833,600 inhabitants, barely 13% of whom lived in towns. There was virtually no industry. Roads were unpaved. Illiteracy exceeded 80%. But the reforms were real. In 1929, Zog abolished Islamic law entirely, replacing it with a civil code modelled on Switzerland's. He banned the hijab in 1937, sending his own 6 sisters out unveiled as examples. He opened Radio Tirana in 1938. And in that same year, he opened Albania's borders to Jewish refugees fleeing Nazi persecution, one of the few European heads of state to do so. But everything came at a price, and the price was Benito Mussolini. Through the treaties of Tirana in 1926 and 1927, Italy gained a military alliance, mineral exploitation rights, and effective control of Albania's national bank. By the Depression, the kingdom was financially captive to Rome. Zog reportedly survived more than 55 assassination attempts during his reign. The most dramatic came on the 20th of February 1931, outside the Vienna State Opera after a performance of Pagliacci, when 2 Albanian exiles named Aziz Chami and Dok Gjeloshi opened fire on his car. His bodyguard was killed. Zog drew his own pistol and fired back, making him by most accounts the only sitting head of state in modern history to return fire on his own assassins. In late 1937, Zog's sisters travelled to Budapest seeking a bride. They return with photographs of Countess Geraldine Apponyi de Nagyapony, and a 22-year-old Hungarian-American aristocrat of striking height and pale complexion, working as a shop girl at the Budapest National Museum. Her father, Count Gyula Apponyi, had died in 1924. Her mother, Gladys Virginia Stewart, was the daughter of an American diplomat from Virginia. Known as the White Rose of Hungary, Geraldine was invited to a New Year's ball in Tirana, met the 42-year-old king, and received a marriage proposal within 10 days. The wedding on the 27th of April 1938 was the most lavish event Albania had ever staged. The civil ceremony at the royal palace lasted only minutes, read aloud by the white-bearded President of Parliament. Count Galeazzo Ciano, Mussolini's son-in-law and Italy's foreign minister, served as the king's witness. Adolf Hitler sent a scarlet Mercedes-Benz. Mussolini sent 4 bronze vases that had once belonged to Napoleon. Geraldine wore a diamond tiara featuring white roses, received a 14-carat blue solitaire diamond ring, and cut the 3-metre-wide wedding cake with the king's sabre. A Budapest Romani orchestra played. Zog paid the wedding expenses of 100 other Albanian couples married that day. She had been a shop girl 11 months earlier. Crown Prince Leka was born at 3:30 in the morning on the 5th of April 1939 at the Royal Palace, announced by a 101-gun salute and a military parade through Tirana. He was 2 days old when the Italian fleet appeared. On Good Friday, the 7th of April, Mussolini launched his invasion. On the 12th of April, the Albanian parliament voted to depose Zog in absentia and offer the crown to Italy's king Victor Emmanuel III. The Kingdom of Albania was finished. It had lasted 10 years, 7 months, and 6 days. The 11 suitcases the family carried across the Greek border contained gold from the National Bank of Albania. how much gold has never been resolved. In 2014, historian Artan Lame cited state archive documents calculating 178 kilograms of gold in those suitcases, roughly 27,848 gold Napoleons, valued at approximately 5.9 million euros at 2014 prices. Lame described this as almost all that was available to the Albanian treasury. And a separate fascist militia document claims 250,000 gold Napoleons, a vastly larger figure. The discrepancy has never been reconciled. What is certain is the political cost. The world knew that the king of Europe's poorest country had fled with the national reserves. Whatever sympathy might have followed was extinguished by that knowledge. Behind them, everything was seized. The royal palace was renamed the Palace of Brigades. The royal mausoleum, built in 1934 after Queen Mother Sadije's death, was demolished in the 1950s. When Enver Hoxha's communist regime consolidated power in 1946, the Zogu name was deleted from Albanian history. Textbooks were rewritten. Anyone connected to the monarchy carried what the regime called a njole ne biography, a stain on their biography, that condemned them to social ostracism, denied employment, forced relocation or imprisonment in labour camps. The erasure was total. For 45 years, an entire generation of Albanians grew up in a country where the monarchy had officially never existed. If you're enjoying this, subscribing is the best way to support the channel. It's free and it helps us keep going. The Exile of the House of Zogu lasted 22 years across 10 countries, and it reads like a novel no publisher would accept for reasons of plausibility. From Greece, the family travelled through Turkey, Romania, Poland, Latvia, Sweden, Norway and Belgium before reaching Paris on the 8th of August. 1939, and they settled at the Château de la Meilleraie in Versailles, the same property recently vacated by the Duke and Duchess of Windsor. When Germany approached Paris in June of 1940, they fled again to England with assistance from Commander Ian Fleming, the naval intelligence officer who would later create James Bond. In London, Zog took an entire floor of the Ritz Hotel. The bill, according to persistent accounts, was paid in bars of gold bullion from those 11 suitcases. The family subsequently moved to Forest Ridge in South Ascot, Berkshire in 1941, then to Parr Moor House near the village of Freeth in Buckinghamshire, where they remained for the rest of the war. Zog was never recognised by Britain as heading a government in exile, but British intelligence used him. Then he selected infiltration teams for Operation Valuable Fiend, a joint British-American plan to destabilise Hoxha's regime by sending agents into Albania. The operation collapsed entirely after the Soviet double agent Kim Philby, working inside British intelligence, betrayed the team. Every agent was captured or killed. In 1946, the family relocated to Egypt at the invitation of King Farouk, whose own dynasty was of Albanian origin. Muhammad Ali, founder of the Egyptian royal house, had come from the Albanian city of Korçë. Farouk visited Zog weekly during summer months to gamble and play cards. Queen Geraldine later described these as the best years of her life in exile. But after Farouk's overthrow in the 1952 revolution, anti-foreign sentiment rose. Egyptian authorities raided Zog's villa in Alexandria and confiscated gold reserves for failure to declare assets. In 1951, during a visit to the United States, Zog purchased Knollwood Estate in Muttontown, Long Island, a 60-room Italian Renaissance mansion set on vast grounds, for approximately $102,800. He intended to recreate a micro-kingdom for Albanian exiles in America. He never moved in. United States immigration officials refused to admit his full entourage, and his deteriorating health made the transatlantic voyage impossible. The estate was sold in 1955, never occupied by a single member of the royal family. Rumours of treasure hidden in the walls sparked looting. The mansion was eventually demolished. Its ruins sit today inside a county park preserve, and overgrown and unvisited. The family's final home was France, first Cannes, then the suburbs of Paris. Zog spent his last years in declining health, smoking 200 cigarettes a day, his weight dropping, his lungs failing. He'd been king for 10 years. He had been in exile for 22. King Zog I died on the 9th of April 1961 at Hôpital Foch in Suresnes, on the outskirts of Paris. He was 65 years old. He had been hospitalised on the 4th of April with severe stomach pains. In his final days, he reportedly asked Geraldine to bring him a revolver, saying that if doctors told him he had cancer, he would rather shoot himself. See, he lacked the strength to reach for the weapon. He was buried at the Cimetière Parisien de Thiais, a municipal cemetery south of Paris. No government sent a representative. And the communist press in Tirana was entirely silent. In a function room at the Hotel Bristol in Paris, approximately 70 members of the Albanian diaspora gathered. Colonel Haitham Selmani stood and shouted the words prescribed by tradition. "The king is dead. Long live King Leka." The 22-year-old crown prince was proclaimed king of the Albanians, a title he would assert without irony and without a country for the remaining 50 years of his life. Zog left behind a single sentence that serves as his own epitaph. "It was I who made Albania," and a longer reflection that captured everything the crown had cost him. It is easy to be the king of 400 million slaves and captives, but it is very difficult to be the king of 1,000,000 kings, as I am. Queen Geraldine spent 41 years as a widow. Now she followed her son Leka through Spain, Rhodesia and South Africa, living in rented houses and borrowed compounds, carrying the title of Queen of a country she had been inside for less than a year. She kept the diamond tiara from her wedding. She kept speaking Albanian. She kept waiting. On the 28th of June 2002, Geraldine returned to Albania for the first time in 63 years. Crowds lined the streets of Tirana. She was 87 years old and already ill. She died 5 months later, on the 22nd of October 2002, at Tirana Military Hospital, after suffering at least 3 heart attacks following treatment for lung disease. Her funeral on the 26th of October was conducted with full military honours at St. Paul's Cathedral in Tirana. Thousands of Albanians lined the processional route. A statue of her was unveiled in Tirana in February of 2022, donated by the Hungarian embassy. The largest maternity hospital in the capital bears her name. She had been queen for 11 months and a widow for 41 years. She never remarried. She never stopped calling herself the Queen of the Albanians. Crown Prince Leka I grew to 6 feet 9 inches tall and became one of the 20th century's most extraordinary royal pretenders. He was educated at Victoria College in Alexandria, the Aiglon School in Switzerland, the Sorbonne in Paris, and the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst in England. He spoke 6 languages. He listed his profession as king on his passport, and border officials in multiple countries accepted it. In Franco's Spain, town where he lived through the 1960s and 70s, he organised the Albanian diaspora and allegedly came close to orchestrating an armed overthrow of Hoxha's regime. Spanish authorities discovered an arms cache at his residence in 1979 and expelled him. During a refuelling stop in Gabon, hostile soldiers surrounded his aircraft on the tarmac. Leka appeared at the door of the plane holding a bazooka. The soldiers withdrew. He resettled in Rhodesia, then moved to a compound in Bryanston, near Johannesburg, where the apartheid South African government granted him diplomatic status and tax exemptions. In February of 1999, South African police raided his compound and found grenade launchers, anti-personnel mines and approximately 14,000 rounds of ammunition. He was arrested, and all charges were dropped within 3 months. The weapons were returned by court order. He married Susan Barbara Cullen Ward, an Australian interior designer and art teacher who had studied Egyptology at the Sorbonne, in a civil ceremony on the 8th of April 1975 in Biarritz. A religious ceremony followed on the 10th of October in Toledo, Spain, where a Muslim cleric, a Protestant pastor, and a Catholic priest all officiated. Queen Elizabeth II sent a telegram signed by your cousin, Elizabeth. Susan stood 5 feet 2 inches tall. The visual contrast with her 6'9" husband was immediate and permanent. The great political gamble of Leka's life came on the 29th of June 1997, when Albania held a referendum on restoring the monarchy. The country was in chaos. Pyramid saving schemes had collapsed. The economy had imploded. Armed gangs controlled entire regions. The official results were 450,478 votes for the monarchy, 33.25%, against 904,359 opposed, on a turnout of 71.64%. Leka rejected the count entirely. He claimed the inverse, that 65.7% had voted in favour. He led 900 armed supporters to the Central Election Commission. A 15-minute shootout followed. One royalist, Agim Gyonpalaj, was killed. When asked if he planned to leave, Leka replied, "Why? It is my country." He departed on the 11th of July, was convicted of sedition in absentia, and returned permanently only on the 28th of June 2002, after Parliament granted amnesty and 72 members formally invited the royal family home. Susan died of lung cancer on the 17th of July 2004 in Tirana. Leka's own health, ravaged by chronic respiratory problems and decades of heavy smoking, declined steadily. He died of a heart attack on the 30th of November 2011 at Mother Teresa Hospital in Tirana. He was 72 years old. The Albanian government declared a day of national mourning. All institutional flags were lowered. His state funeral featured blessings from 4 religious leaders, Muslim, Catholic, Bektashi and Orthodox, in the Zogu tradition of interconfessional unity. On that same day, Prime Minister Sali Berisha made an admission that validated 50 years of Leka's protests. The Stalinist principle of "you vote, but I count the votes" was applied in that referendum, Berisha said. The Albanians voted massively for their king, but the referendum failed to meet quotas as it was manipulated. Zog had 6 sisters. All were granted the title of princess and the style of royal highness in 1928. Each went into exile with the family. Each died in exile. Princess Adil, the eldest, born around 1890, married Major Emin Bey Agoli Doshishti and had 5 children. She lived in Henley-on-Thames after the war and died in Paris on the 6th of February 1966. Her descendants, the Doshishti, Cooper and Ruderbush families, live today in England and the United States. Princess Nafije, born in 1896, married Sena Bey Kriezia from Kosovo, who was assassinated in Prague in 1927 while serving as Albanian ambassador to Czechoslovakia. Their son, Prince Tati Esad Murad Krieziu, was designated heir presumptive to the throne from 1931 until Crown Prince Leka's birth in 1939. Nafije died in Cairo in 1955. Princess Senije, born in 1903, was Zog's favourite sister and the most publicly active. She chaired the Albanian Red Cross, served as de facto First Lady from their mother's death in 1934 until Zog's wedding, and married Shehzadeh Mehmed Abid, a son of the Ottoman Sultan Abdul Hamid II, in 1936. They divorced in 1949 with no children. She died in Cannes on the 21st of June, 1969. Princess Ruhije, born in 1906, was the patron of arts and handicrafts. She died of cancer in Cairo in 1948, the first of the siblings to go. King Farouk honoured her with an official funeral. Princess Mizajan, born in 1905, patron of sport, never married and died in Cannes in 1969. Princess Maxhide, born around 1911, patron of tourism, never married and died in Cannes in the same year. Senigi attended Mizajan's funeral and died 1 week later. 3 sisters died in the same city in the same year. Subscribing takes 5 seconds and helps this channel reach more people. That's all. On the 17th of November 2012, the remains of King Zog I were exhumed from the Cimetière Parisien de Thiès. And a French honour guard of legionnaires in ceremonial dress stood at attention as the coffin was lifted from the ground it had occupied for 51 years. The remains were flown to Tirana and placed in a reconstructed royal mausoleum in the capital's Grand Park, timed precisely to Albania's centennial of independence. Approximately 3,000 Albanians attended the reinterment ceremony. Prime Minister Berisha declared that King Zog was an illustrious figure who laid the foundations of the Albanian state. President Nishani called him one of the most important figures of Albanian history. The remains of Queen Geraldine, Crown Prince Leka I, and Crown Princess Susan were transferred to the mausoleum from Shara Cemetery at the same time. For the first time, the family was together. They had been separated by exile, by borders, and by different decades of death. They were reunited underground in a country that had spent 45 years pretending they had never existed. The family's property claims remain unresolved. Leka II launched a legal challenge in 2013 claiming the presidential palace, the former royal palace, as personal property. He claims to have won in the Supreme Court. The building remains in government hands. The royal villa of Durrës, looted during the 1997 unrest, was returned to the family but sat in ruins until an entrepreneur announced a private restoration project in June of 2025, aiming to restore it to its 1939 appearance within 5 years. Leka Anwar Zog Reza Baudouin Memsiziwe Zogu was born on the 26th of March 1982 at Santon Hospital in Johannesburg. Now, the South African government declared the maternity ward temporarily Albanian territory for 24 hours so the prince would be born on Albanian soil. His names trace the family's exile through the capitals of its hosts: Anwar for Egyptian President Sadat, Reza for the Shah of Iran, Baudouin for the King of Belgium, Msiziwe for the Zulu word meaning the one who was assisted. He was educated at St. Peter's College in Johannesburg and then the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst, where he graduated in December of 2005 as Best Foreign Student. He later earned a degree in International Relations and Diplomacy from the University of Illyria in Tirana. He served in the Albanian government as political advisor to the foreign minister from 2006 to 2009, the Ministry of Interior from 2009 to 2012, and as political advisor to President Nishani from 2012 to 2013. He oversees the Queen Geraldine Foundation, which has rebuilt schools and kindergartens in northern Albania. He married actress and singer Ilia Zaharia on the 8th of October 2016 at the Royal Palace in Tirana. 5 religious leaders officiated: Sunni, Bektashi, Orthodox, Catholic and Protestant. Queen Sophia of Spain attended, so did Prince and Princess Michael of Kent and Empress Farah of Iran. Their daughter, Princess Geraldine Sibylla, Francesca Susan Marie, was born on the 22nd of October 2020 and at the Queen Geraldine Maternity Hospital on precisely the 18th anniversary of her great-grandmother's death, in a hospital that bears her great-grandmother's name. The marriage ended in divorce, finalised on the 25th of April 2024. On the 15th of March 2026, Leka married Blurta Celibashi, a 27-year-old photographer, in a private civil ceremony at Chateau Apogny in Slovakia, the historic seat of Queen Geraldine's Apogny family. She now holds the title Princess Blurta, of the Albanians. He has said of his daughter's upbringing, "I do not allow my daughter to boast about being a princess. A title comes with responsibility, a sense of service to the nation. Albania is a parliamentary republic. The monarchy has no constitutional status. The Legality Movement Party, the royalist faction, holds one seat in a parliament of 140. The Albanian government has accommodated the House of Zogu without ever formalising its role. There is no crown to restore. There is no throne to return to. There is only a family that was born in a castle, built a kingdom, lost it in 10 years, carried its gold across a border, wandered through 10 countries in 22 years, and came home in coffins. Princess Geraldine is 5 years old. She was born on the anniversary of her great-grandmother's death in a hospital named for a queen who was a shopgirl before she was a bride and a refugee before she was a widow. The child's great-grandfather built a country and lost it in the time it takes to raise a daughter. And her grandfather stood 6 feet 9 inches tall and carried a bazooka through an African airport. Her father does not let her boast about being a princess. The House of Zogu has not ended. It has merely lost everything except the name.